Eu vou. Welcome to the first edition of the Amazon Bioeconomy Investment Innovation Forum, which is brought to you by the initiative An Agreement for Amazon and the Interstate Consortium of Sustainable Development of Legal Amazon. We understand that the Amazon diversity contains unique and essential elements for the whole humanity to live better. Not only the fauna and flora are important for the health and the regulation of the world's climate, but also its peoples, the culture, the arts, the soils, the waters, the cities, and communities. We believe that keeping the Amazon sustainable and living involves everything and everyone who lives here. We need to preserve the biodiversity, use science and technology, allied with the sustainable development, always looking at better conditions of life for everyone who lives here. We want not only to keep the forest standing, we want more standing forests, more biodiverse and sustainable, and less social and territorial inequalities. We understand that the Amazon bioeconomy, the economic and commercial activities from this biodiversity is a great ally to the sustainable development that we look for. That's why I invite you to participate in the Amazon Bioeconomy Investment Innovation Forum. We want to bring new voices to this debate, know different experiences and perspectives about this market, find synergies and pathways for a more prosperous and resilient Amazon. These are conversations for everyone. To those who look for investments, to those who look for options to invest, to those who propose public policies, and everyone who wants to understand more about the Amazon bioeconomy. So shall we? Hello everyone. Welcome to the 12th panel of the F2 EBAM. In this panel, we are going to talk about exchange of knowledge and experiences, and the focus is on the wild Pirarucu. I am here followed by wonderful panelists. My name is Hanayana Silva. I'm a biologist, master's in freshwater biology and interior fishing. And I am the manager of cooperation of science and technology for SEDECT. The objectives of this forum, of this panel, is to share the different benefits of the value chain of the managed Pirarucu, understand the challenges of the activity, and thinking strategies for its strengthening. That is such an important activity for the managers and for the state. This panel also has a special taste for us from SEDECT in a project that has been developed by SEDECT, that is the Nova Social Bio, a partnership between SEDECT and MAPA. Pirarucu is one of the benefited chains by this project that aims at tackling the information, the lack of information, and to provide more credit, access, more innovation in the process and the governance of these chains. If you have questions or want more information, we'll have an email to contact, and I will ask the teams of this SEDECT to live in the chat room, the website. So this biobusiness experience exchange has some guiding questions. We want the panelists and the commentators can bring to us all these issues. So we have to think about the set of benefits associated with the Paruru management techniques be valued by the market to increase the manager's profitability effectively. This is one of the first questions. What types of funding, support, or sponsorship sources could be effectively accessed by management initiatives as structuring support for the strengthening of the chain, infrastructure and working capital, for example? And it would be very interesting for us to think, how can state geopolitics contribute to the operation and strengthening of this activity of wild Pirarucu management in the States? To talk about these issues, I would like to call Claúdia Torres, who is an expert in conservation of natural resources and a master's in human sciences. As executive director of the fishing village, she coordinated a sub-project that resulted in the first fishing agreements of the Mendes Solimões region. Currently, Ana Claudia coordinates the program of fishing management of Mamirauá Institute that gives technical assistance to riverside communities. And she's a member of the group of research in territorialities and social environmental governance in the Amazon. Anna, you have 10 minutes, and thank you very much for being here. You have 10 minutes for your speech, and I will see you soon. Okay, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here with you in this panel with my fellow panelists that will be commenting on the presentations that will be given here. So if you can put on the presentation to share, we can talk about this right now. Okay, our panel talks about the experience in biobusiness in wild Pirarucu. I will tell you a little bit of history of what we do here, trying to focus on the guiding questions proposed for this panel. At some point, I'm going to mention some specific data of Mamirauá and other general data from the state. Components of the management involve the scientific base, the same proportion as the traditional knowledge we use with the protagonism of the users, some groups of management. This also involves ecological zoning, the definition of guidelines. It is a strong work to define the norms of the rules of use, defining specific rules for the use in each territory. There is a monitoring of the inventory through the count of the Pirarucu fish, the productive and sustainable use that involves the generation of income from the definition of quotas of extraction in tolerable levels and the respect to the biology and the ecology of the species. We monitor the production, we have a technical follow-up, and we disseminate best practices. And this is summarized in social, environmental, and economic factors and involves this activity, these promising activities, not only in the region of Mendes Solimões, but it can be expanded to other regions in the Amazon. It also involves the local governance forums for the definition of the rules of use. So the management is participatory. When we talk about this, it because involves many different subjects, both the protagonism of the communities, but it involves other subjects that represent other institutions in the territories, some government bodies. So this decision-making process goes through many different links. This is a summary of what we'll present in the last two slides, that in the management, the fishers participate in the trainings and meetings, they establish the rules of use, they make the counts of the stocks, and they protect the water bodies, they fish and they trade their production. And they start to make this activity sustainable is that the quota is established from the result of these countings, preventing the removal of maximum of 30% of the adults, leaving the 70% to assure the reproduction of the species in natural environment. And where it all started in the mid-Solomons River region, in these areas of influence in these reserves, Miramauá and Amanhã. As you can see in the map, there are many municipalities around this territory. It is a highly productive region with the Solomons River with important other rivers here. There is a very deep area, and this contributes to the abundance of this resource. And this is the location of the management units. Today, the institutes give assistance to some of these units, and one of them is being implemented. We are talking about around 1,600 fishermen directly involved in these three units. And we have to mention that the initiatives that Miramauá has made are along with other partners institutions, and this is the configuration was what we call the group of Pirarucu that gathers management organizations, support organizations that provides technical assistance to the communities, some public bodies, and other institutions that aims at discussing the results of the productive chains and think about solutions and strategies that can be extended to the territory. And this group from these partnerships for the conservation of biodiversity in the Amazon started in 2017 to monitor the diagnosis of the region that was called the Community Management of Pirarucu in Protected Areas of Amazon. And this is the current situation and opportunities to strengthen the production and the trading. And this involves many different partners, but also many different groups in many conservation units, some indigenous lands. So there is a diversity of people and experiences. that join their forces in thinking collectively about the solutions for the management. And as I said, this is the area of the diagnosis that encompasses 7 federal units of conservation, 6 from the state and 1 from the municipality, 7 indigenous lands, and 10 fishing agreements. And these are the images of the meeting of the group, Pirarucu group, where we gather. And this is the diagnosis with important information that shows the magnitude of this management. So this is a diagnosis of 2016 that shows that the movement of Pirarucu in the economy, so 7.5 million of gross income for the producers, and this is in 2016, but in 2000, this is from 2012 until 2016, 1.8 million of gross income to the intermediaries, 14.3 million of income to the benefiters, and there is a gap of information that we do not know about the retailers and the fashion industry and gastronomy who also work with this product. The price is paid to the producers, despite all that volume and because of the production that is very high, but in terms of percentage of price that is paid for the fish, it's really below the advantages that it provides for the preservation of natural resources. So we saw that the average price with inflation and without inflation. So we can see that it has been dropping this price paid to the producers, and that does not match the efforts and dedication and the consequence that this work brings for the maintenance of the standing forest. And this diagnosis indicated with the survey, with the operational cost of the fishing, but also the cost throughout the year. And one of the main costs of the management is the territorial protection. Here in the Mamirauá region, it represents with this cost 43% of all the expenses throughout the year. So it is a very high value considering that the production, looking at group by group, is not so high. And this price would cover this whole set of expenses would be 13 reais per kilo. As you can see in the chart, it is really below that value.
So we have a huge gap price-wise. We also see this as a motivating factor. Search for more collectives to organize themselves. Let's go to the results. To management. First, the initial objective was regulation of fishing that was in the 90s. Then the recovery of the natural stock of fishes, around 42%. 96 when it was then from there it was considered illegal production, so in 99 starts to be legal. Around 6,000 tons has been produced in Mamirauá. It's income of more than 28 million. It's estimated that now is around 50 million reais. The average increase of the annual income around 29%, recognition of the practices, fishermen, some of them even being awarded national level. The assurance of food safety for rural and urban populations. Insertion and increase of participation of women in the projects. While we saw that in the beginning they represented little more than 1%, and now they are up to 38% of the beneficiaries. And the socio-political inclusion of the urban fishermen focus historical conflict between riverside fishermen and urban fishermen, and we have been able to implement some of sharing situations. Income from the management represents around 40% of all the fishing income and 15% of general income of dwellers of the reservation. It also contributes to the income. Part of the resource is focused to a maintenance fund to ensure investment in infrastructure and adequation to materials, increasing quality of the practice. Manage also brought visibility to the fishing activity. From this experience was larger support from public sector and financing agents, financing projects because the production is guaranteed. Also the expansion of management in other locations in the Amazon, not only inside but outside of the state. Almost all the northern states have experience in the management. Started the experience we did here and also countries in South America. About difficulty, talk about important data that due to the strengthening, but we also have difficulty. Have a unleveled competition with the illegal part. It's offered throughout the year with no restriction and gains market and competes in an uneven way that with what we do that is follows prerequisite. We have geographical difficulty, logistics. We don't have ICE factors in all the municipalities, so this is a hindrance. Limited capacity of transport, storage, and benefiting of the production. Low education of the fishermen. We have administrative difficulty. We don't have the knowledge of the production costs available. We have been trying to implement the habit of record these data and also we this data to regulate prices and the low power of negotiation by the rural populations still patronage system. We also have challenges. Current challenges are valuation of the product, which we need to incorporate production technology adapted to the reality local, considering the Amazon reality, a way to increase quality and reach new markets, new levels of demand as well, which these products would need to hit. And including the Pirarucu in policy, it's possible to make these organizations be fit to access and the strengthening of the fishermen organization for them to develop self-management and take the helm of the conduction of the management. Development of control tools, monitoring and evaluation of the activity to more precisely assess the development of the activity and the capacity of influencing public policies inside the context of the Amazon. About strategy and plans of support towards commercialization. Slide. This includes the traceability system. Have pre-benefiting units as well. Water treatment facilities with photovoltaic units, which increase the quality, safety, and investment in infrastructure, geographical indication process, stamp of origin, commercial arrangement, portion of events, organic certification, stimulating negotiation of sale of the skin, and the marketing plan. Support demands, answering to the questions, have integrated actions of government bodies for sensibilization, fiscalization, monitoring control of the commercialization, fighting illegal commerce. We have an organization training plan, investment in infrastructure through public and private financing, implementation of policies of environmental compensation, fostering of capital, decrease of the bureaucracy in public policies, promotion of events, and reactivation of public structures for the processing of that. Thank you, Anna. It's incredible to be able to visualize this panorama of the Pirarucu chain. There are very important elements, importance of this chain for the territorial development. For us to be able to reach positive impact for socio-economical development of the state. Thank you. Pleasure to have you here. I'd like now to invite to the floor our next panelist, Aurélio Pavarino, agronomer engineer, and a master in sustainable development by the Wing Specialist in Environmental Management by the Alcalá de Henares University in Spain. Works at India and worked as a general coordinator bio and sustainable development. Coordinator of extractivism, Secretariat of Family Agriculture, MAPA, in Program Brazil Social Diversity. Thank you for accepting our invitation. Have 10 minutes. Thank you, Hanayana. Like first, thank you for the invitation. Participate in such an important event. I've been watching the last panel. Have been very enlightening. A lot of content, bringing a lot of knowledge, experience. Very honored to be here participating in this event. Thank you. Also, I would like to congratulate the organization of the event, providing this space for discuss Amazon and bioeconomy, very important. You said that you would like to invite an important panelist here. Would like to share my screen with you. I'm going to be able to do it because I would like to bring real important participants. I don't know if you can, if I'm able to share here. So later Adevaldo can tell if from Carawari. I got this picture yesterday. This is a Pirarucu that almost 3 meters long, more than 200 kilos. It shows how our biodiversity has the capacity to surprise us. As we are talking about the biodiversity and the Pirarucu, is appropriate. I'd like to answer these questions. Maybe individually they are out of context. So I will bring. I am in the Family Secretariat in the Coordination for Extractivism in the Agriculture Ministry. And last 2 years we have been working to incorporate something that used to be done by other bodies. But looking at these 3 questions, understanding just to the matter of strategies. How do we adopt strategy? Try to everything about credit and value and structure. So I'll give you a vision how us at the Secretariat are organizing to face these challenges. important for us to say that 4 million rural establishments in this country, 80% are family agriculture situations, including traditional peoples and communities, extractivists and riverside communities. Very meaningful. Almost 70% of all the people who work are labor in the field. Almost $30 billion that of income this generates. Of course, we're talking about a very diverse country. Always had a very significant expression of our biodiversity, focusing on plants and vegetables. Of course, the Pirarucu as well, and all our animal species are also in our biodiversity. Zoo has always had a very strong connection, development of our country, economical development with the biodiversity. When we talk about the sustainable use of biodiversity, family agriculture, traditional people, communities have very strong proximity with that. When we look at these productive chains, especially about the biodiversity, it's very clear this establishment of this relation between traditional communities and peoples and sustainable use of biodiversity that has been done by decades, maybe centuries. Looking at this scenario, you understand a look on a term that is the name of this panel, but in several actions we have been bioeconomy, understanding that there is economy, sustainable use, natural, but beyond the technology, chemical industry, but practical use by the families. And the strategy of looking to the Pirarucu chain and seeing that there's something that brings us to bioeconomy. Why do we use this term? It's not any economy we're talking about. We're talking about something that the Amazon demands, economy based on criteria and pillars of sustainability.
So therefore, bioeconomy has brought a lot of association to the use of natural resources with the issue of sustainability. So that's why we are adopting this strategy. So when we talk about bioeconomy, there is a whole possibility of acting in the food, but also in the phytocosmetic, the herbal plants and the medicinal plants, and Amazon has more than 20 products that are used in the cosmetic industries, renewables energies, the medicine plants and the bio inputs, biofuels. So there are many different possibilities and different aspects that we can work on. When we think about some numbers of this bioeconomy, the numbers are very significant. Just to get a feel, acai that has brought, as has become a commodity, which is more than $6 million that is generated in the 40 Amazon states. And thinking about this context and this situation, MAPA conceived and launched in 2019 a program that is called Bioeconomy of Brazil and Social Biodiversity. This is a program that has 5 axes that structured this program, but with very clear objectives. Some of them respond to these guiding questions. For example, the issue of increasing the access to the market. This is one of the results that we expect that this program of bioeconomy is exactly how do we increase the markets for products that has a restricted reach. How do we work with inclusive production? There are many chains today that need to provide a productive inclusion and generate income for family agricultures, not only in the Amazon. This is a program that reaches all the biomes. And how do we see and provide the economic use of this biodiversity, but always thinking the topic of sustainability? And how do we integrate policies? And we can insert a key player in the whole story, that is the market, the private sector. That mostly this is what drives the other chains. This is a program that is divided in thematic axis. We have the pro-extractivism, as the name indicates. It focused on the support to structure the productive chains related to extractivism. So Pirarucu is one of them, but we have the essential oils, babaçu, andiroba, and many other, the Brazil nuts and the açaí, and many other products from the Amazon. There is another part, another leg that is focused on special olive oils, the olive oil of Buriti, of Copaiba, and Andiroba, so we can have different olive oils with the aromatic blends. We also have a market niche, but it needs to have the production structured. The roadmaps of social biodiversity, so we can recognize what the urban people know in the supermarkets, but they now have the opportunity to know where the biodiversity happens in the rural areas. So these are roadmaps that provides experiences, rural experience that we can add value to the products. With a niche of renewable energies, I think this is critical, especially in the Amazon. In the Pirarucu chain, we see many potentialities that we can explore, and the potentials of the agro-business. So due to this whole context, the program Inova Social Bio is a result of this strategy that we adopt to have more information and more productive structuring and more credit to these chains. So this agreement with the state of Amazonas that we are glad to have participated and provided, it brings this objective, for example, to increase Pronaf through the economy, because it is a credit line that was created to bring more possibilities of funding their production and from the demand of resources that these chains provide. So in this set of strategies, very quickly here, because the time does not allow us to detail more, is that we bring a few answers, but we still need to go deep down and can in fact have structured chains, and especially that most of this is financial assets from the Amazon that goes abroad, that we need a fair share to stay here in the communities. That is the share of this $1 million that the production has. This can come back or even stay in the community. So this is what I had to bring as a strategist, trying to answer a little bit these guiding questions. But we are available to the debate, and thank you again very much. Perfect, Pavarino. Thank you very much for your speech. It's very good for you to bring this program that in fact we are more and more holding hands with this program, and we think that is going to generate good results. I also liked when you talked about the encouragement to the economy. That is an economy with principles that values the social economic development, but also looks at conservation and social justice and respects the role of the state. So thank you very much for your speech. And for those who are following, those of you who are following the panel, we are making a graphic systematization. So now I'm going to call Clara Dare screen that made her contribution here with the panel. This graphic representation is a visual thing that of the things that are being shared in the panel. So this is registered not only to register the memory of the panel, but everything that was approached here. All the charts can be accessed both in the website of the forum or in this website of the Revista 22. so feel free to check it out later. So now I want to start the second round. Thank you very much, Clara. I want to start the second round of our panel. That is the round of the commentators. Our commentators are invited to share their points of view about the guiding questions, to comment on the speeches, and ask direct questions to the panelists. First, I'm going to call Adevaldo Dias, who I don't need to introduce, but I will proudly introduce because I know him in person. He is the president of the Chico Mendes Memorial and assistant of the Association of Rural Producers in Acari, and he's also social environmental causes militant, and he's a great leadership to all of us. Adevaldo, you have 15 minutes for your questions and answers from our panelists. Feel free. You are on mute, Adevaldo. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Mona, and the other panelists of such an important debate. I want to congratulate SECTI for having promoted this debate and highlight this theme of the management of the wild Pirarucu. I can see that many people who are in this chain that defends this cause are participating here. So we are privileged to bring this message here and to talk about this chain that is built by hundreds of hands together. One thing that called my attention is that this debate, you put in the center the manager, the handler. Historically, if you know the Amazon history, the natural resource was all in the center, the exploration of the natural resource, and almost always the communities, the extractivist communities that were making the management were exploited. Not that they stopped being exploited now in the wild Pirarucu management, but I think it's important to always look at the image of the extractivist, the handler, because of the important service that they provide to our society. I think this is a very central aspect that we have to focus. Because while we worry only about the resource and not about the people that make sure this resource exists, we will be doomed to reproduce the economic models that has always marginalized the people. So when we talk about the Pirarucu management, approaching everything that Ana Claudia said, we have two different Pirarucus. So it's important for the market to understand them very clearly. We have the Pirarucu that comes from the exploitation of the extractivists, as Ana Claudia showed the graphic, where the extractivist does not receive 1/3 of the production costs. And there is another Pirarucu that has been for years trying to build and to be put in the market from a fair relationship established with those who preserve our territories. So the market has to understand and respond to itself. What is the Pirarucu that I want to consume? Do I want to consume the Pirarucu that preserves the territory of the extractivist communities, that generate a fair relationship with these people? Or do I want to consume a fish that exploits and enslaves the people who are in the middle of the forest? So in this aspect, I think the group of people and the Pirarucu group is being highlighting this. They are working to change these logics. And thanks to this initiative, Now, for example, the market says, no, I don't know which one I'm talking about. So today there is an initiative that puts in the market the Amazon Pirarucu that established a fair relationship with the providers, where the ASPROC coordinates this process, but with the whole apparatus of assistance, of support, of many partners in order to make sure the market can consume a different product and in fact wants to contribute to the preservation of the Amazon. This is a condition to consume the product. So this is the first central issue. Now, talking about the funding models, even the role of the government in this process, there are some public policies, new public policies for this chain. Many of them are not well adjusted. An example is the PGM bill. We are going through this. It was an important step. The fact that the Pirarucu has entered this program with the possibility to compensate the handlers and the producers, this was fantastic. However, the policy, as Ana Claudia said, it needs to be adjusted to the reality of the extractivist communities. You can imagine in a period of pandemic, although all the efforts that we made and from the assistance support institutions, less than 10% of the communities had access to these policies. So maybe it's easier to adjust the policies than the managers to change their whole work to adapt to these new policies. So I think this is a great need. And I want to talk to Pavarino about this aspect. How can we, what effort needs to be made so these policies that is directed to this public can be adapted to the maximum? Of course, not all bureaucracy has a control, but we have to meet this reality. I also bring here a comment that other policies that are very important that the Brazilian state, and that goes to all the levels of governance, since state, federal, and municipal, that refers to this aspect of the public procurement policies, even institutional procurement or national program of school feeding. If we know that we have a product that comes from vulnerable families with environmentally controlled production, and they preserve the territories and they guarantee this ecosystem that the forest generates to our society. So why don't we somehow pay attention to this public procurement in order to value these products to these communities? Isn't this a way to reduce this exploitation on the extractivists and the handlers? If we called these policies that are already constituted to pay attention to these products that generate a fair relationship and generate a preservation of our territories in the extractivist communities. So this is another question that I bring here.
There's a very interesting initiative here in the state of the Amazon, coordinated by the public ministry, about procurement for traditional populations. Fundamental. Issue of the credit is accessory institutions have an advantage of getting support to develop this work that has been done with the communities, but our credit system, our public credit system, is very difficult. Still very difficult. This project we are discussing, that is key important for us to sensitize public banks, especially, of this importance of the activities such as of the management of the Pirarucu, because it generates income and dignity for the families and conserves natural resources. About the dialogue with Claudia, she brought some data that I want to hear. And Claudia said that 40%, more than 40% cost of production of 1 kilo of for protection of the territory. This is an action that could be shared with federal level. Community spends from their income 40% that income they to substitute action that could be done by the state. So also in the dialogue with the other colleagues, how could we equalize this cost? How could we share this cost with the government or society as a whole? And Claudia, Pavarino, don't you see that these communities are worth to be paid by for environmental and ecosystemical process, the importance they have for our society? I'd like to comment on that, please. Now for the dialogue with Pavarino. There are initiatives that I understand that government has been doing. I understand that you are a consumer of the Pirarucu from the Amazon. We have this joint effort for the certification of organic for the Pirarucu. Our Pirarucu is organic already. We have the effort of the community, this aspect. But society needs for someone to certify this product as organic. And there is a joint effort to build a normative certification to regulate this process. Since 2015, we have demanded for this process of certification. And we still wait normative instruction from MAPA to orient us for the process of certification. Interesting for us to dialogue on that because I think it's an important role that the government could do to help us certify this product. Thank you. Let's have this dialogue. Thank you, Adevaldo. This is very good to talk about public policies. And I'll give the floor to Marco Aurélio to give the operations. And Ana Claudia, if you could do the same, briefly, please. Okay, I'll try to do it briefly because Adevaldo put it very well. You, Adevaldo, who are in the direct contact with, and we have to try to jointly find ways out. It's true, celebrated a lot in last year of the possibility of Pirarucu, the only animal product in our portfolio. It's very easy for us to be able to alter the law. Maybe because it's too recent, had some bumps in the road, and also the people of Konabi, for us to be able to reach the whole volume we expected. Expect for this to be a learning of the beginning of the process, but want to reach 100% of communities and minimum price for the Pirarucu for us to be able to make this happen. So we have to start early, and since now we need to work with you guys with for us to orient the bureaucracy that needs to be overcome. We're looking at this together with CONAB. We have been trying to find this way to overcome this bureaucracy. We have to do it together, Adevaldo, because it's here to stay. It's more than 30 million a year of the subvention of the BCMBio for all biodiversity products all over the country. And Pirarucu is one of the ones we want to continue. About public procurements, you are right. The effective way of guaranteeing the commercialization of these products of biodiversity had important advancement, and it's more than 100 products are established, and part of them being part of public procurement projects. And in Amazonas, especially, I have a signed technical bill here of the difficulties for the commercialization. This is about recognition of traditional people. Sometimes the distances in the Amazon are different, maybe days by boat, a week sometimes. And we have been able, and it's a good step forward because of the demands of the traditional people. Let's make it for recognition of the traditional communities beyond these documents that are already used by INCRA and the National Council for Traditional Peoples. This is from last month, so not our this is our decision with support from government. We still have to take more steps forward. We have to effectively recognize all the biodiversity and the potential we have. It's no use for us to create lines of credit if we have. Together with Tatiana, we talked in the previous discussions. We have to make PRONAF effective in the Amazon, only in the state of Amazonas, but other states as well. We need to talk to financing agencies, communities, to know if PRONAF needs to be altered or not, for us to make it effective, actually. Since June last year, data from Singapore show more than 1,300 access to the system in the whole country. I agree with Adevaldo that what you do is environmental service, is ecosystemical service. This preserves the forest, water, and biodiversity. Valuation is much higher than financial value of life itself. We need for this algorithm to include a notion of what is the environmental service inside the production. For us to have this pragmatically, say this is it, this is what we are able to establish. This demands a lot of discussion. There are folders on tables at the ministry. The matter of certification as well. We would like to focus on traceability. The world demands sustainable products, products that preserve the forest in higher quality. Brazil is able to deliver that if we are able to do these things as answers. And certification is one of those things. We have participated in several technical meetings, also including with MAPA, about normative instruction taking care of extractivism, and this matter of how to certificate the products as organic is the focus of these meetings. have the opportunity of debating this internally with our colleagues from MAPA to dialogue with your reality. You can't just create ridiculous laws, not taking into consideration the reality of the community. Some of the advances and the challenges with all this situation that Adevaldo brought us and the people who are watching us. Thank you, Pavarino. I'll give the floor to Ana Claudia. Do you have any comments on all this? I think Anna lost her connection. So the next commentator, and later Anna will say her part. The next commentator is Fernanda Varengas. She's a specialist in finance economical reality, business plans, and diagnosis of value chains for products that's possibly experienced in management and implementation of traceability systems. She works for communities who are protected in the Amazon. She's an administrator by PUC Minas and social educational projects management. So develop sustainable development by Sorbonne. It's an honor to have you here, Fernanda, bringing some cold air to our panel. Have 15 minutes in the commentators.
Thank you, Hannah. Good afternoon. It is a pleasure to be here with my friends to talk about this important activity for the Amazon and as an example of a sustainable activity. The Pirarucu management is an activity, it's an incredible activity that gathers all the characteristics and criteria of an activity that is sustainable. At the same time, that it has a huge impact of preservation and recovery of the stocks of Pirarucu and other species in the surrounding ecosystems, it works strongly with the territorial production. Adevaldo talked about this. For the managements to happen, we need territorial protection for the whole year, where we count all the animals, and the handler is the manager is there all the year, being a guardian of the forests and the rivers. So it is an activity that the environmental return is huge. So it's one of the main activities that has environmental benefits that are so clear and evident. For to beyond these environmental benefits, the management activity has an impact of productive and social organization of the communities. And it is an organization that brings other benefits to the community, not only for the management itself. It contributes for the communities to be stronger, to seek new possibilities, to seek new public policies. So the management has this strong impact. So it brings not only this environmental impact, but also the social impact of organizations. And this is an example of one of the main activities in the sustainable activities in the world. And it has a huge economic potential. We saw some data that we work with the diagnostics of Pirarucu that it was a part of this production related to 2016. And we worked only with one product, that is the meat of the Pirarucu. And there are many other sub-products of Pirarucu and other products associated to the fish that this economic value can be even higher. So it is an activity with a high potential and needs special attention in terms of investment and strengthening, especially from the states that has an important role in this structuring step to give conditions so it grows. So in my perspective here, which is a pillar that needs more support, is the economic pillar, because in economic and environmental and social terms, it is well strengthened and it brings a lot of benefits. We only need this concretization of the economic benefits, especially for the managers. We saw that unfortunately the prices are decreasing over the years for the managers. The manager receives only one part of the time that they dedicate to the management. They recover the expenses that they have in terms of inputs and material and supplies, but the time is not well compensated. It's very miscompensated actually. And this is an important aspect that we have to be clear about, because this can bring disencouragement for the change. So this is an urgent thing that we have to solve, and we have to pay attention, special attention, so we do not disencourage these communities to continue to do this work of conservation of the environment. So this is what I wanted to make clear, because this is a real need and we need to pay close attention, and we need to come up with some actions that has to be implemented like today. We saw in the Pirarucu group and in the regions that there are a set of coordinated actions, so we can in fact reach these benefits and increase the profitability of the product, so this part of the income can reach the hands of the managers. It's not easy. It's not simply giving credits or investing in infrastructure or increasing the production. We need a group of actions that are coordinated among them. But this pirarucu that is produced has a market, and the market can compensate the manager properly. One thing that I wanted to bring to Pavarino and Adevaldo is that how do you perceive the relationship with the private companies, with the players that could get more involved and enhance their activities in the Pirarucu chain? And how can this happen? Because we can see that we have examples of relationship with some companies, with a group of managers that are important, that are interesting, and that can be enhanced in the perspective of the program, of the MAPA program. Because there is a group of actions to strengthen the companies, and they can have a closer relationship with the communities or create conditions for these relationships between communities can be more effective, that we can be closer to them. And even to Anna, how do you see this relationship with the companies and the difficulties? What can be done to improve this? So these are the questions that I would like to give to you. I think that's it. Well, again, I'm going to leave some minutes to Pavarino, but Anna, you have some minutes too. If you want to start, feel free. Okay, I didn't get the last part of Adevaldo's, but the question until what I heard, that what I thought about the possibility of sharing these costs of the protection of the territory with the states, and I am an advocate of the systemic payment. We need to have a counterpart, and I put this in the last slide, as a strategy to encourage the continuity of the management and coming up with new strategies of management. But this has to come with a direct transfer, because the initiatives that we are seeing with the projects that touches this topic, we always see this compensation being made through projects that needs an intermediary or an organization intermediating this process in order to direct transfer. And when we see this compensation being ordered to the production, to an individual producer that owns the territory and owns the land, we can see this direct payment. And in the communities, there is a project in the middle. So maybe this is the criticism that I make when we pay for social environmental services. Now, about the question that Fernanda asked, the price in the sustainability of the management, this is what is missing. And I don't think it is one specific action that is going to change that, but a group of actions will handle this implementation in practice. I think that we are living an experience since last year with the network origins of Brazil with entrepreneurs in this direct partnership, in this direct relationship. We have to deal directly with the company that's going to benefit and is going to buy the product and is going to put the product in the market. We have to make this relationship closer, and the Origins of Brazil network, coordinated by Afora and Luisa, they have tried to create this ethic and fair relationship. And I believe that's something that can encourage this approach between those who produce and those who buy and distribute are incentive policies or some kind of discounts or tax exemption for those who work with the product. I think we need some variation that the businessman can be recognized and awarded or valued or exempted from some taxes because they encourage the sustainable production and they buy from sustainable producers. As Pavarino mentioned, some productivity chains. I think this is a stimulation from the government so these companies can have this relationship. I think this is a relationship that is starting to be more different, but the patronage system is still very strong. The company does not see the producer as a partner, and it's only a commercial relationship, and we need to change that. We need to go beyond that to understand that they are a partner. They provide the raw material that they produce in the market, and we have to try to keep this relationship in the middle and the long run, but not in terms of reducing the price and limit the opportunities, but we have to work together with the opportunities and improvement of the productive chain. An example that we saw in the Origins of Brazil network is that many times becoming a partner, the businessman with the investment, they can improve the product close to the production facilities, so that reduce the cost of other links of the chain. I think these are my contributions from the comments of Adevaldo and Fernanda. Marco, can't hear you. If you want to make your comments about what Fernanda said, feel free. I'm sorry, I think my connection had stopped here. So, well, Fernanda, I think what you said was very good in terms of private market. How can we look at these markets and insert them in the solution to solve some bottlenecks? As I said, the bioeconomy social biodiversity program, as one of the results that we expect, is to integrate policies for the access of these policies with the private players that are in this chain. The government itself is not going to solve all the bottlenecks. Some things are the role of the state, and others that we need to find ways to organize these joint actions. So our Secretary of Family Agriculture, since the beginning of the program, was always very clear that we need to search the market as a central element for the generation of income, for the financial support of these economic activities that are made for decades or centuries, but they are not well structured or they lack information. And how do we understand the role of the market? So we are fostering some spaces so we can make this discussion in a proposal way. You might have participated some of the dialogues of social biodiversity. We have the dialogues of açaí, the dialogues of Brazil nut. Well, now we have the Pirarucu that is a little bit shy, but these are spaces conceived in the MAPA program with the German corporation, the GIZ, where in one space we can discuss what is creating, because this is the beginning. But many times the players have more conditions to do that. So the social biodiversity dialogues, for example, the açaí dialogue has brought important elements for our governments, but for the chain and the players and how these market relationships can be established. The dialogues of the Brazil nut is the same, and the Pirarucu dialogues maybe the Pirarucu collective group can be more expressive and have established as this dialogue. But this is one of the examples of that we have. There is another initiative in the cooperation between Brazil and Germany. They have a methodology that is very interesting that we call Develop PPP. That is a way to establish for certain productive chains, since it is ready, the structuring of these chains with the private sector. So there are examples of the cocoa in the Amazon that some industries of chocolate and cocoa, they're already established projects with the land reform for the incorporation in the productive chain that for the company is very easy. I need these tons of Pirarucu, but it's not that simple. We need to structure this production first. And the Chamber of Commerce, as it was mentioned here, Adevaldo mentioned some regions, and there is a technical norm that came from Catapov's movement. There is an enhancement of the traditional people, but this Chamber of Commerce of the states. And lastly, I want to say that we have concrete results. It's not in Amazon, but in the South, we established arrangements for medicine plants and herbal plants. There are 5 different chains, 5 species for family agriculture that is already producing with the commitment of companies that work with essential oils and other plants to buy all this green supply that is going to be resulted in essential oils when they will generate revenue for the private sector and the agricultures.
Just to make it clear, this initiative market is very strong. You have to have means of bringing the market, have ways, have options to together. Pirarucu and Aldo has dialogues with several companies, less or more effective, but for us, it makes all the sense to be continued. Thank you, Marco. We are reaching our third round here. I have some questions from the chat as well. I'd like to thank for participation in the chat. We have some interesting questions here. This question is for Ana Claudia. Very interesting because talking about the Pirarucu chain as a multiple benefits chain. The question is, what explains the meaningful participation of women in the project? And I would like to add, what can we do to increase even more benefits of the Pirarucu chain for women who are participating in the process? And I have another question for everyone. Which bottlenecks are priority subproducts of the managed Pirarucu benefit and better explored? I also add to the question, which are the bottlenecks more for, to access the international market, talking about expectation of financial return, multiple benefit chain. What can we access? How can we access these markets that have a greater potential for financial return? So, Ana Claudia, if you start, then add to the participation is a always delicate topic because women have always participated, but it has visibilized. They have always been there, some parts of the process, but it wasn't considered part of the fishing. One of the things that contribute is we shouldn't hide from discussing these topics community wise with a lot of care, bringing to the surface these reflections. And research data also help. We have a lot of social research, not only ecological part, but the social part as well, understanding these gender relationships and how they influence production. Many times, the family reproduction, the number of people in the family is also a factor because this has to do continuity of the management activity. My team has always dialogued a lot with the groups, expose our opinions, and how the participation and inclusion of women in the management process could benefit the whole process. Care with information, with management, but they fit very well with record of production, cleaning the fish, also repair of materials. They have highlight positions, coordinating positions in a lot of the activities we manage, and also coordinating teams of fishermen. So we have to open up for this discussion. We have to discuss this with communities, and women also need to place themselves at disposal because it has shown to be very fruitful. Second issue in how we get closer to the market and its valuation issues, there is little expertise in this area. We still need to pull together with partners that bring expertise on the market. And this is what we are trying to do as a collective, hiring consultants and listening to specialized professionals, also about marketing and communications area. Because one of the things that we realize is people who are directly working projects, very easy to speak about sustainability information that I brought to you, what the management brings as a benefit. But to have a quicker communication in a shorter conversation, we need to surround ourselves with partners to bring this expertise to this discussion and collaborate with us. Nobody can do any advancement alone. have to discuss this collectively. Pavarino, be my guest. I think we should go on to our final considerations. So I would like to thank everyone for this opportunity to participate. Bottlenecks are priority, right? Need to overcome. I have been doing this reading from the dialogues we have with the people who are in the front line, representative communities, try to understand and materialize what in fact we can understand as bottlenecks and proposing public policies. Our role. So a project like this was built through readings like this, State of the Amazonas, and our point of view as public managers. This is a project that identifies four larger themes to be understood as bottlenecks to be overcome, or actions that demand strongly. For sure, Aldo has a possibility of going deeper on that. Management issue. How do we organize this production? More effective way brings more possibility for us to have a supply of products regular manner with quality. It goes through management of the ventures, individually or collectives and comparatives, associations. This is an element that we understand is necessary bottleneck to be overcome. We understand that the times and distances in Amazon are different. The access to technology such as internet and digital environments are difficult. We need to look at the management of the ventures issue. It's one of the systems of the project we want to develop effectively. I think that the training issue is very good. How do we exchange experiences for the ventures to be apt to organize their production? Also, we need to talk about development of technology. When we talk about productive chains, we talk about the raw materials and technical assistance, processes, sending of the product up to the final market. Refrigeration of the fishing, for example. How do we understand this? The whole solar energy potential that we have in the Amazon. How do we bring technological innovations to benefit, to make these technologies closer to the community? There are technologies, talking about machines and equipment and also applications and softwares that are still not available. We need to develop them. And another thing is information. There is a very large information asymmetry in these chains. If we take a look at what is paid for an extractivist, the origin of the chain, when it reaches the final market, very far apart, many times due to information. How much the market is actually paying, what are the necessary information that we have to have access to the technological and market information as well. This will generate pricing. And again, this is another issue that we have on the process. And market. Access to the market. Another bottleneck to be overcome. We need to have the communities to supply these products regularly so the consumer is much every day more avid for these products. So these are 4 points that we have in this project of the government of the state of Amazonas directly. Thank you, Marco. Adevaldo, speak. Of this aspect of the subproduct or export that you put here on the table, main issue is to develop a communication strategy with the market and show that our product is different. Product one want to continue to historical exploitation of the forest, not to recognize the attributes that are related to the product that they are able to produce and place on the market. I think it's our duty to give opportunity to get to know these products. They need to know to be able to decide on that. I think this is a key strategy, whether it's local or international market. There are countries in new products and the attributes that are behind these products of Pirarucu. I think the situation of the benefactor would be very different income wise and money wise. There are people who want to consume sustainable products, environmental and social point of view, but they also want to get to know these products. Market for the subproduct simpler. They pay for benefit when they have a direct relationship in the commercialization, even more than the Pirarucu meat. It's a very promising product, especially the skin, the Pirarucu, and needs a lot of attention. So the other bottlenecks, I think that you guys spoke. The central issue here, we need to communicate and instruct with whoever wants to keep a good relationship with the forest.
Thank you very much, Adevaldo. Now, Fernanda. Okay. Well, what I can add is two important aspects then, other than what Adevaldo has said, that if you do not know the final product yet, about how the versatility of the products and the subproducts, this is something that we are dealing with, is the need to invest in the quality of the fish. And this depends on a structuring investments, not only from the implements and the areas of benefiting and storage, local storage, but also the transportation. This is an aspect for any product in the Amazon. Transportation is a different question, but especially for Pirarucu, it's extremely important. We have some situations where the fish has a great quality, leaves the community, but once it's transported to another area, to a capital, for example, and the transportation is not proper, all the quality of the fish is lost. So this has been happening, and many times the necessary quality to reach a better and more demanding market as the Southeast or for export, this type of situation makes it even more difficult. This is one of the bottlenecks that is important for us to bear in mind and to focus. Even to stimulate that businessmen in this transportation business can offer better quality transportation with lower cost. So if this is stimulated inside the chain, this would bring a lot of benefits to strengthen this chain. And another aspect that we have to mention is the working capital funding. This is extremely important for the businesses, both to find opportunities of negotiation with other markets and within the communities. Because when you think about the manager, they have an immediate need. These resources for the sale of the fish, they are counting on that for that moment. So they need to receive that resources on that day. And many times an organization that coordinates the fishing, they do not have the immediate money. So they depend on the sale of the fish and the commercialization. And the same way, in order to negotiate with other links of the chain, the working capital is important to make larger scale sales with higher amounts. So in the bottlenecks we see, we have to facilitate the access to credit, both from the communities and to other entrepreneurs throughout this chain is extremely important. So this is one side that has to be worked on alongside with the others that we mentioned before. Great. Thank you, Fernanda. Thank you, Adevaldo. I want to thank all the panelists and commentators. We went over the time here, but it was really, really relevant and it's important, the construction of this panel. So for those of you who are watching us, thank you very much for the participation. Continue following our schedule, and the summary of this panel will be made available in the channels of the forum. Thank you.